Good morning. This is House Talk with Wally Kerr from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty Kerr team. My name is Dave McKay. With us, of course, is Wally Kerr. Good morning.
Morning, Dave.
How
Good
you
to
doing?
see you again. Great. It's early this morning, but glad to be here with you again this week.
Awesome. It's getting a little easier to wake up on Saturday mornings now. It was a little
is.
hard that first week. Last week, not too bad. Only about 3 cups of coffee this morning, and we are ready to roll. So first, right off the bat, I want to let people know they can go to the website, wallyhasthebuyers.com. They can also text us during the show, 405-330-3000. Again, 330-3000. And what they can do is they can ask you any questions. They're just going to get a text back. They don't have to talk to anybody if they don't want to. If they want to know the value of their home, if they're thinking about selling, give you their address, and maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, my home's a 7, again, to 330-3000, and they can get information on their home.
That's really helpful. If they can just tell me a little bit about it, I'll give them a good estimated value for their property. Looking forward to hopefully sharing some market information today that will help anybody thinking about buying or selling this year.
Okay, so I want to recap and ask maybe an update of a couple of things we talked about last week. And one of the things that really kind of boggled my mind was inventory throughout the metro. You mentioned on average, if I'm correct, we're around 7,000, 8,000 is average homes. And last week you said we were somewhere around 4,700. Where are we now?
Now it just dropped below 4,600, so it's dropping. And Dave, this is kind of crazy. I mean, normally the inventory ramps up in the springtime, but so does the demand. When the kids are out of school, first-time buyers, maybe they don't have kids yet, they'll move most any time of year. That demand is always there, and it's there right now. And what we talked about last week was the price range below about 300,000 still being a really hot price range, right?
Okay, yeah, that's the sweet spot.
Kind of the sweet spot, 300 and below. And I mean, the numbers are just astoundingly low right now. We are once again at the lowest number of homes for sale on existing homes. And now the new home builders are ramping up right now. They're getting ready for the spring and summer because they know what's coming. But boy, the number of existing homes is now as low as it was last spring. And last spring was a record-setting, spring.
Refresh my memory on this. To me, obviously, the number of homes are dropping, so it really is a seller's market?
It is a seller's market. It is. And even though rates went up, that's, I think, what's surprising people a little bit. Everybody's aware that rates went up in the fall time pretty significantly. I mean, Dave, they were up around 7.25%, 7.5%. They're now about a point lower than that. And I think that the marketplace is beginning to accept that as being normal. So a lot of people my age, a little younger than me, a little older than me, that remember when rates were always 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So rates are hovering around 6, 6.25.
Okay. So it's not scaring off buyers too much. And a phrase that I'm learning is the seller, while it's an advantageous market right now for sellers because the number is a little lower, there is something that sellers can do, obviously, to help everyone win. Everyone wants to win, feel like that we got the best deal. So there's certain things sellers can do if buyers feel like, wow, the rate just isn't what I want and the number of homes just isn't there. So I feel like the price is up a little bit high. There's different things that can be done to help each other win, correct?
There are. Whether it's upgrading or making improvements, there are things that sellers can do to increase the demand for their home and get a higher price.
Okay, you were telling me before we got started this morning about homes in Edmond and Norman specifically, like numbers of homes that seem really low to me.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, as someone that knows the area, that's been here for a long time, they know that Edmond, there's a perceived notion that, Edmond's the nicer neighborhoods or Norman might have this. Does that scare people off if they think there's a low number of homes? Or is it, hey, all I need is one home?
I think that's right. When people are ready to move, generally speaking, if they don't have roadblocks in the way, if they can get a loan, if they can sell their current home, when that right home comes up, I think the public pays less attention to the number of homes for sale. I do think, since we shared that before we started this morning, just quickly, is the numbers on existing homes are astoundingly low. Let me just share what I researched yesterday, Dave.
Okay.
It's really something else. Edmond in the 2020 census shows to have just under 35,000 households. $34,750.
Okay.
And do you know in Edmond, as of yesterday, that if you don't count the new homes, and this is in the MLS, this is in the Realtors MLS, the Oklahoma City Multi-List,
Okay.
there's only 182 homes for sale. All price ranges. There's 35,000 households. There's only 182 homes for sale.
So out of 182 homes, if I'm looking for something, now there might be a little bit more in that sweet spot, but if I'm looking for something at 250 out of 180, that might be 30 homes, 35 homes.
Oh, would you believe that number might be 8 homes?
Wow.
I mean, it's really low. So you were talking just for a moment earlier about what is the normal inventory of homes.
Yes.
And my knowledge after doing this 35 years is that number is about 6,000 to 8,000 homes for sale in our MLS. Now, I like to research and look at more like 20, 25, 30 miles around downtown Oklahoma City, say from the intersection of I-35 and I-40. It's about 3,100 homes right now, but do you know that 54% of the homes that are for sale in a 30-mile ring around I-35 and I-40, do you know 54% of the homes for sale are brand new homes that are either at some stage of construction or they're already built?
54% of the 3,000 something.
Of the 3,100, right.
Wow.
So there's so few existing homes for sale. You know, some people like an existing home because maybe there's more trees in that neighborhood. Maybe the yards are a little bit bigger, and it's not a brand new neighborhood that's still under construction. And in Norman, 49,000 households in Norman and 144 homes for sale, and that's it. So it is back to a seller's market again, and I think sellers can really capitalize on this, along with buyers still getting a home that they want, as long as buyers can get the financing, as long as they like the product that the seller has for sale, and because people still want to buy homes. It's the American dream, Dave.
Okay, so 50-50 split almost, new and used homes. So
Right.
I am thinking about selling my home, and I've been in the house for 10 years, but the home is 18 years old. And so there might be a couple of things I need to do, because now I'm competing against new homes, which have the new car smell. So what are some of the things that I might need to look at and I don't need to look at?
Okay, I think this will be a fun topic for our
Okay.
listeners. So first of all, with fewer homes for sale, buyers are a little less picky. But remember that if you're selling a home today, Dave, you want the buyer to have their own down payment. Of course, they've got to have that right.
Yes.
Now, they could ask you to pay for closing costs. So do you want the buyer to pay the closing costs, their own closing costs, or do you want to pay them?
I want them to pay.
You want the buyer to pay them.
Sure.
So if the buyer pays their down payment and closing costs, part of the question is, will they have money to go update a home? Now, remember, updating obviously is a whole lot different from remodeling, right? Remodeling means we're going to go in and tear out the kitchen and make major renovations, or we're going to go in and tear out bathrooms.
Sure.
We're going to start scraping popcorn ceiling off the ceilings. I've seen this market in a hotter seller's market the last 2 or 3 years where you could actually sell a home that had Formica countertops in the kitchen. Yeah, you just gave me a surprised look like everybody does because most people expect granite today, right?
Yes.
So just simply put, if there's 2,000 homes on the market in Edmond today, do you have to have granite to compete with the other homes that are for sale? Probably so. But if there's only 182 homes for sale in Edmond, you could probably get away with a few things. So updating is important for any home. Let's talk about what maybe you don't have to worry about doing.
Okay.
Things maybe you wouldn't do and things you can. Let me stipulate that this would depend on price range. Because if you're going to go buy $1 million home, you probably expect $1 million home to be in really nice condition. It costs a lot more to update or remodel $1 million home than it does a $250,000
yes, you have a point.
Just got more square footage and different amenities on the inside. So let's define that when you try to decide whether you're going to update or not, you want to think about the price range the home is in, the market conditions, and how many homes you're competing with. Let's face it, if there's only 2 other homes you're competing with, probably don't have to do as much, right?
Sure, yes.
There's going to be more buyers and fewer homes for sale. And then how about competition in your area? Let me use a quick example. I sold a home in the Huntwick edition in Edmond about 15 years ago, and the home still had granite or just solid surface countertops in the kitchen. We identified that all the other homes in that neighborhood at that time, people had updated to granite. So the owners asked me and said, what do you think? Should we go in and spend $4,000, $4,500 for granite? We decided to do it because we needed to do that to compete with that market condition at that time.
Okay.
But today,
I get that.
There's so few homes for sale, probably don't need to go spend all that money. So let's talk about what not to do. The smaller the cosmetic flaw, doesn't need to be fixed. Okay, now if you've got a teenager, you know how this deal goes because I know you've got a teenager. Your son or your daughter goes in and showers, and they run the shower for 45 minutes, and it's like a steam sauna in there.
Yes. You don't know how close to home this hits.
But what does happen, as you know, is over 6 or 8 months, you begin to see the finish on the cabinets just begin to flake off. That's a problem. I would go in and either restain, refinish, or touch up for sure if it's flaking off. But if it scratches in the woodwork, no big deal. If your dog has been digging on a door because you lock it in a bedroom and it tears up the door, probably needs to be fixed. But the smaller the cosmetic issue like paint or stain, if it's not real noticeable and doesn't detract from the showing, I wouldn't worry about that.
To me, that sounds like something that's slightly damaged versus something that is loved and lived in.
I like that. And I think that's probably real accurate. If it's going to be an objection when a buyer looks at the home, probably need to do something about it.
Yes.
One of the things I see the most are just the number of wires. So whether it is surround sound in a living room, whether it's the old DirecTV dish on the side of the house with wires dangling off the side of the house, there's a lot of people that don't know what coax is and what phone cables are. And so as we alienate those things and go with YouTube TV and we don't need the dish anymore, now we've got cell phones, we don't need all that phone wiring. I think wiring is something that scares people. Looks like a safety issue.
Sure.
So wires hanging out of a box, cover plates that are missing with exposed wiring, it looks dangerous to buyers. That's a really easy fix and doesn't cost much money. You either, get your wire cutters and start snipping those. Now, don't hold me responsible here. I'm not advocating that you go get your wire cutters.
Well, Wally told me just to head to the backyard and start clipping everything.
Start snipping away, so I'd be very careful about that. But that looks like a safety issue.
Yes.
And so that concerns people. I get asked all the time, should I paint the garage? And really, my opinion is people have made their decision to buy long before they get to the garage.
Sure.
So I'm thinking more about interior things. Now, you said updating compared to remodel. So let's talk about some things that maybe people would do. I can tell you with great confidence that now brushed brass is in style today. That's the brass, but it looks like you've scratched it with a piece of woolite.
Okay, yes.
And it's got a rougher finish. Now brushed brass is in, but the real shiny brass, like the fireplace doors they did for 20 years.
Yes.
And just the brass doorknobs, those things are out, and those can be replaced for a pretty affordable cost. How about wallpaper, Dave? Do you have any wallpaper in your home today?
You know, I don't, but I have lived in a home that had wallpaper, and it looked a little dated. So does it really depend on how the wallpaper looks, like the actual style of it, or?
It can.
Okay.
It can. I recently closed a home for $1.7 million, and it had a very, very classy wallpaper in the formal dining room and wallpaper in the powder bath. Real classy. Went along with the home, but that was the only wallpaper inside the home. I'm not going to advocate for stripping all wallpaper out of every home, but generally speaking, if you walk into builder homes today, you're going to see very few homes by builders that have wallpaper in them. And that's because the builders know what people want, right? So a couple of other things. Let's say, and here's what's interesting too. You might not have thought about this, Dave, but if you're marketing a home that's occupied, it's different than marketing a home that's vacant, because a home that's 20 or 30 or 40 years old that's vacant has a tendency to show all its flaws. It's got the old phone jacks in it.
Yes.
It's got phone jacks mounted on the baseboards. Sometimes it will have alarm contacts hanging off the windows because they're not glued anymore. Sometimes it will just have scrapes on the woodwork to where when you walk in you think, wow, this home is 40 years old and it looks kind of banged up. So I think as the home is older, if it's marketed vacant, you probably have to do a little more. Give you another example. If you ever walked in a home and noticed that maybe the cover plate around the electrical outlet is white, but the plug part in
Yes.
the middle is ivory.
Because something happened to that plate and they replaced it, or they put a like a vanity type plate on there, and then went back and just switched it out with something generic.
Right. If you're
So-
in the main room where people walk in and get their first impression in the living room, I always recommend trying to match those up to where they're not mismatched.
Sure.
What you certainly probably don't want is a white cover plate and a black outlet in the middle of it. But we see a lot of mismatch in whites and ivories. That's
Yes.
a pretty
Yes.
affordable fix for people to take care of that can matter. And then I think one of the big ones, you remember when we looked at homes years and years ago when you sold and we turned around and bought, Dave, you walk up on the porch, I'm fumbling around with the lockbox. What are you doing while you're standing on the front porch?
I'm looking around everything from just what kind of style the overall look of, if things are faded or damaged at all, or am I appealed to it or am I not?
Perfect. First
So-
impressions, right?
Yes.
How does the front door look? How does the doorbell switch look? How does the landscaping look? Is it painted around the front porch, or does there rot around the doors? Okay, so I think those are things that are important. Wood rot also kind of concerns people. They
Yes.
might worry about mold, or they might just be concerned about the cost. So if I had some rotted wood, or if I needed to gussy my home up for curb appeal, let's face it, there's really three things that truly make a difference what a home is going to sell for. And that's going to be curb appeal. It should be very clean on the inside. I
Yes.
can't emphasize enough how clean makes such a difference to people. But it's these first impressions. Now I get in the door, I walk you in, and you're standing in the entryway. There again, what's that impression look like? So if somebody has to, go take pictures of your home and really scrutinize those. Stand back from the front door, take a picture, and then look at it as if you were looking at a selfie photo. What looks good here? What would I change? Now walk in your front door, take a picture. What looks good here? What would I change? And these are just the first impressions. You've got to put yourself in the shoes of the buyer.
And that affects, boy, my attitude once I step inside the door. I might be 50% out the door or in, or if I love how it looks from the outside, you go in and you go, well, okay, well, and you're almost already selling yourself on why you love that house. If there's things wrong with it, you go inside and the house, the floor plan is great, it's clean, but now I'm trying to convince myself why I love it because I've already dissatisfied with the exterior. So that, I think that's half the battle right there, right on the doorstep.
Do you know that within 1 to 2 to 3 minutes, most people know whether it's the home for them or not? And that's why the first impressions are so important.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a couple other things. If you can take it down, like blinds that are torn up, curtains that are old and don't look great and are out of style, or shelving that's warped, maybe it's in the garage, I wouldn't fix that stuff. I'd just take it down.
Okay.
It is nice for a home to have blinds because people want to buy and they do want privacy, but I wouldn't worry about things that can just be removed. I would just take them down. Like driveway cracks, I see a lot of those in some of our older neighborhoods. I wouldn't worry about cracks in driveways unless it's a tripping hazard. Some other good things to do. Here's two of the big ones. Flooring. Flooring's kind of a big ticket item. And if carpet's worn out or stained, or if wood floors are scratched, it's probably worth looking into doing something about flooring. You can offer an allowance, Dave, but it really never makes the same impression.
Sure.
You know, you want to walk in and fall in love with the home. I can't tell you how many hundreds of home buyers I've worked with who walk in and they suddenly get quiet. And you think, I really like this one. This one might be it. And they get really quiet. And you can tell that they're placing furniture when they come in. First impressions are everything. And the other thing I would say is, my last suggestion here would be neutralize personalized paint colors.
Okay.
Deep reds, bright oranges, whether you're a Sooner fan, an OSU fan, maybe you're a Tulsa fan. If you walk in builder homes, I always talk about builder homes because the builders know exactly what people want. They spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to study what people want. And then that's what they go build. And if you walk in builder homes today, they don't typically paint rooms bright colors. They don't put in wallpaper, and they don't put in the old shiny brass fixtures. So there are some things that homeowners can do that don't cost that much money, that aren't remodeling, but it's updating, like what you asked about at the first of this topic. that they can do at an affordable cost.
Staging and moving stuff in the particular areas, not just to cover up stuff, but I'm sure that you can take, as a seller, your existing furniture with the help of the right agent, which we'll ask that question in a minute too, will help to stage the furniture in a way that maximizes the space and really kind of opens it up. Can you do that? Does it mean a lot to move your furniture around and do that?
100%. I'm so glad you said that, because the last thing I didn't mention that I bet a lot of people figured I would say is decluttering. You may need to go get a storage unit, and that's okay. You want the rooms to look big. You don't want them to look small online. Let's face it, pictures are everything. Do you know people are touring homes online and they're just eliminating the homes they don't like right at the computer and deciding what they do want to go see?
Well, we did that. To be frank, yes. Yeah. It makes it so much easier because, I guess back in the day, you had to, before everyone can go online, you had to take people out to 15 to 20 homes. And now they come to you and say, well, I like this area and these 5 homes I want to go see. That makes your job a little easier, I'm sure, when they've already looked online.
It does. Our buyers find homes, but I'll tell you this, we are always looking for off-market properties. These are properties that other agents don't know about and other buyers can't find. And a lot of those come through my guaranteed sale program. People call me and would like me to buy their home because they're moving out of state, buy their home because maybe they're moving down for financial reasons. Maybe they can't climb the stairs anymore. So buyers find the homes, and they do ask us about them, but we're also very, very proactive about helping people find homes they can't find on their own. I'll just finish by saying there are ways, if you've got a beautiful Disney mural on a bedroom wall that's awesome, like the one that you guys had in your house, it's very easy to market the home, and this is one of my tricks to say, seller will repaint the northeast bedroom if desired. And then that answers the buyer's objection.
Okay.
That's a
yes.
little trick to where we don't have to go paint all that artwork that was done.
That's fascinating.
We don't always have to paint the colorful rooms.
Okay.
But neutral will always win out in the end. So if people need advice on, if they need guidance from me, my team members, if they need a staging consultation, if they need support on photo days so that we can be there, I'll just drop this in, Dave. We do virtual staging. I could take a vacant home, put virtual furniture in it, and make that home look like $1 million. Do you know, in many cases, I can make the home look better than if the homeowner left their furniture on the inside. So we'll perhaps talk about virtual staging in one of our other sessions.
Okay, you are listening to House Talk with Wally Kerr. My name is Dave McKay, Wally Kerr from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty Kerr Team, and we are here every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. just talking homes. Again, if you have a question, 330-3000, 330-3000, of course, area code 405. If you want to know a pretty good estimate, the value of your home, same number, 330-3000. Just text your address and on a scale of 1 to 10, what you think the quality of your home is, if it's a 7 or 8. Okay, so now we've done all of those little updates that may have needed to be done, or we left a couple of things because now I know I don't have to do that. Now I'm really ready to sell. I know some people that sell on their own, and that scares me because I don't know what I'm doing. So I need to look for an agent. How do I know, or maybe what are some of the aspects I need to look for when hiring an agent that's going to help me sell my home the best I can?
Okay, that's a good question. And first of all, I want to say it's important to my industry. I've done this 36 years, just started my 36th year. I want people to have a great experience and say that realtors or brokers are professional, know what they're doing, that they're a great asset to the industry. So the advice I want to give today is not just going to be geared my way. This is going to be all about what people really need to think about as they approach interviewing a realtor or realtors. I love it when people interview 2 or 3 realtors and then have us in, because I think what we demonstrate is our expertise and knowledge and experience. But let's talk about what's important for people. It does look like it's going to be a good spring market. If someone's got a home to sell, like you said, they could text me to get a value. I think experience comes from an agent that knows the market well. And I also think experience has a certain amount of battle scars, whether it is just knowledge, knowing how to solve problems, helping people with their questions and having the answers readily available. I think it's important that people don't just choose someone because they're nice or because they like them. Perhaps you know somebody from your church and you think, well, they seem like a pretty nice person. But I think there's questions that have to be asked. It is, how long have you been in the business? And how many homes have you sold? How active are you? Are you part-time? Are you full-time? Do you know my neighborhood? Are you familiar with my neighborhood and the amenities and what my homeowners association offers? Do you know when we open and close our pool in the neighborhood? Let's talk about, a country club like Oak Tree or Rose Creek. There are major differences in those two country clubs and how they operate inside those neighborhoods.
Sure.
Major differences. So I think hiring someone with experience and then maybe some specific questions like these. How many buyers are you working with? Some agents are waiting for buyers to come along. For instance, I've been at this 36 years. We have a constant influx of buyers coming our way. A lot of it is referrals that you would expect we would receive from our past customers, right?
Yes.
Dave, you referred me people before.
Yes, absolutely.
And I have hundreds of other customers that regularly send us referrals. So I've always got buyers that we're working with. If you sat down and signed papers with me today and handed them to me, what are you telling me to do? In essence, aren't you just saying, bring me a buyer?
Yes.
Bring me a buyer.
You know what?
I
Okay,
want
you
buyers.
just made a point there, and I want to interject. I think as just, John Q. home seller, you're right. I'm looking at it as, okay, I want you to sell my house. Now run out there and sell it and just market it to people. And I didn't really give much thought that you have, whether it's a bank or you have knowledge of buyers that are looking at my price point in my part of the city, maybe that neighborhood. So you're right. If they know that area and they have the buyers from day one, we're going to start talking about, this is what I want to sell it for. And this is the family I'm looking hopefully to move in. You're going to go, well, I got 7 of those. I know some people looking for this area, and that's going to give me a lot of confidence to go, oh, wow, okay, this is going to be maybe not as hard as I thought.
If someone's going to interview a realtor, I would tell you or challenge you to ask the question and say, if you hear the realtor, let's put it this way, if you hear the realtor say, well, I've got the paperwork, now let me go find a buyer for your home. Isn't that very different from me saying, now that we've got your price established, let me go back to my buyers in waiting.
Yes.
Let's push your home in front of them first and give them an opportunity to buy your home. If a realtor you talk to says, what I'm going to do, Dave, is I'm going to go market your property and try to find a buyer, you might be asking your question, how deeply immersed in the marketplace is this realtor I'm talking to if they're telling me they're going to go find a buyer as opposed to bring one that's already inside their database or somebody they're already working with?
Sure.
How about another question? Are you going to bring me qualified buyers to look at my home, or are you just going to show it to anybody that drives by? So that's something that we're really, really careful about, is not asking you to leave your home if we're not bringing a qualified buyer for your property. I think that's a big one that I hear a lot of time from sellers that interview us. Here's the big one, though. I think this really stands out more than anything is, what's your marketing plan? If you're interviewing a realtor, that should be one of your questions. What's your marketing plan for my home? And if someone says, well, I'm going to put a sign in the yard, don't you kind of expect that already?
Sure.
I'm going to put it in the MLS. And you think,
Did they all go in there?
Well,
Shouldn't they be?
yes. Yeah, that's where the exposure is. So homes go in the MLS. I'm going to hold an open house. Isn't that something you kind of already expect?
Yes.
And then, so if that's what you hear, and then someone says, well, I'm going to tell the agents in my office about it, you'd kind of expect that anyway, wouldn't you? For every home we list, there's a specific marketing plan because every home is different. So do they have a marketing plan, or are they just going to tell you they'll do an open house, they'll throw it in the MLS, they'll put a sign in the yard, and they'll tell people about your home? They'll talk to their friends, they'll talk to the agents inside the office. Do they have a marketing plan? And if they have a marketing plan, they should be able to clearly exhibit exactly what they're going to do to create demand for that property if they don't already have a buyer for it.
What if I do if I chose the wrong agent? How do I rectify that situation?
That can be tough. So it might be smart to ask for a short listing period up front.
Okay.
A lot of people in the past just have kind of figured you sign with a realtor for 4 to 6 months. Some realtors take longer listing agreements. Shorter listing agreements can keep an agent on their toes, knowing that they have a shorter period to get the job done.
Okay.
Our firm offers a cancellation guarantee to make it easy for sellers. So if they're not satisfied and we're not doing what we promised, we have a cancellation guarantee where we shake hands, say thanks for the opportunity, and let the seller move on. I think our sellers really like that. I don't know how many other companies offer that, but our cancellation guarantee is something that our sellers
sounds pretty
employ.
unique. And I was going to ask maybe something. You're going to be the person that's going to give the examples here because you're Wally Kerr. So you just mentioned one. Is there anything else that's a little unique that you would offer? I'm not trying to sell you here, but just that your offices would offer that people could think about, even if they go with another agent, they know to ask the agent for this, or what is something that unique that you're going to offer?
Our guaranteed sale program has been something that our customers have loved since I started running it with my wife, Cindy, in 2007. So it's real simple. I list someone's home for sale, and I tell them that if your home isn't sold in an agreed period, and we sit down and talk about what that period is. Let's say someone says, Wally, I'm moving to California, and I want to take the family with me. But boy, houses are expensive out there, and I can't afford to own that one and own this one. So I need my home sold in an agreed period, and if it's not sold, I see your guaranteed sale program says you'll buy it. What price will you buy it at? And it's a price that we agree to with them up front. I sit down, work the numbers, we come to an agreement, and if it's not sold in an agreed period, we buy it. We sell most people's homes and don't have to buy many. But I do offer to do something that nobody else does. Here's the back end of that, Dave, that a lot of people don't think about is, let's say today, like when we sold your home years ago,
yes,
you owned a home and wanted to buy another one. And so the question was, how do I transition from one home? I don't really want to make 2 house payments. My bank hasn't quite said that I can afford to keep my current home and bite the house payment for this new home.
Yes.
So my guaranteed program says, if somebody's interested in your home that's listed with me, I'll go buy their home for cash so that it makes yours easier to buy.
I didn't even know you can kind of change the dates and, well, we want to move in on this date and they agreed to it. Now I'm going to sell the house on this date, and you can kind of move dates around where it was just seamless. We moved out and moved in, and it was perfect. It worked out great.
You know, every scenario is different. Every person's scenario is different. Why they're selling, where they're going, when they need to close, if they're buying another home here. I can tell you, this is a difficult business. There's lots of headaches that come up. I credit myself as being a really good problem solver after 36 years in the business, and I think that that might be one of my best attributes. But experience matters, and if someone would like to have, I've got a free report that's called 10 Questions to Ask Before You Hire an Agent. You can text me right now, 330-3000, and just say, the 10 Questions Report. And I'll ask you for your address. I won't call you. I promise I won't call.
Okay.
And I'll drop that report to them in the mail, or they can just go visit wallyhasthebuyers.com. There's a little tab up at the top that says More, and they can find that report that's called 10 Questions You Should Ask Any Agent Before Hiring Them to Sell Your Home.
Again, so easy. Don't have to talk to you.
Want to make
get
it
the
easy.
Information. You are listening to House Talk with Wally Kerr. I'm your host, Dave McKay, and Wally Kerr joins me every Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. here on KOKC. Michael Connor from Great Plains Mortgage is here. Michael, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. Are you usually up this early in the morning?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good. Well, we might have to have him every week then. Okay, some specific things I want to talk to you about, maybe financing and interest rates and everything. You're going to be the professional on this. And I know a couple of years ago, things were maybe, you can correct me, artificially created so it was easier to purchase homes when interest rates were around 3.5. I'm not going to hold you to any rates here. And then now recently we've gone up to like 6.5 or so. But I think, from what Wally has told me, I'm going to put him on the spot too. I think maybe they're starting to subside a little bit. You can confirm that with me. And then if they are, what causes the volatility, a couple of days when it's like 6.1 to a 6.8? And is that a big difference? And if so, what causes that? And welcome.
Well, thank you for having me again.
Yes.
It's kind of a loaded question, but I'll start with going back to 2020 and the pandemic. The important thing to think about when it comes to mortgage rates is they're based on a lot of different factors. A lot of things impact the volatility and what rates are. But one of the biggest things that they're based off of are mortgage-backed securities, which we consider bonds because they're kind of a long-term debt.
Okay.
Mortgage-backed securities, just to give you a quick definition of that, all loans that are originated in the United States, they get kind of bundled up and sold on what we call the secondary market, and those get securitized into those mortgage-backed securities. Those get traded, and they're considered as bonds because they're long-term debt. So those bonds, as they become more popular, prices of bonds go up, rates go down. When bond prices go down, rates tend to go up. So what affects bond prices? That's going to be the big question. So going back to 2020 with the pandemic, think of what happens in the economy and how that impacts bonds. So when the economy is doing really poor or there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy, people tend to, or investors, traders, they tend to get out of equities, which are stocks and things that are very volatile, and they go into bonds, which are relatively stable, and they're more of a secure investment aside from cash.
Okay.
So, pandemic, a lot of uncertainty in the economy. Nobody knew what was going on. Everybody wanted to go into bonds. Bonds got really popular. Prices skyrocketed for those. Rates tanked. There are other factors that go into that, but that's the general.
Good for home buyers.
I think the lowest rates we saw, Michael, were around 2.5, where it was not just an interest-only loan.
Wow.
2.5, 2 7/8. So you're right, Dave. I mean, they've doubled, haven't they, Michael?
Well, we've seen people get down into the low twos if they were doing a 10, 15-year loan.
Okay, but let's be clear. That's not a healthy economy.
No.
That wasn't a healthy economy. That was artificially low, and I think that's what we identify with more today is the rates where they are now indicates more of a healthy economy back to where they probably should be. Isn't that correct?
For the most part, but they are also, in a sense, artificially inflated because of inflation. So progressing through 2020 into 21, going into 2022, rates started to go up. Right when we hit January, rates started to peak. And that's kind of when a lot of the uncertainty in the market started to subside a little bit. People started to get more confident in the economy. Jobs numbers started growing. Things overall started to get better. So as they started to get better, mortgage-backed securities started to get a little bit less popular. And
means the rates start to go up. Okay.
That's the first part of it. And then there's the Fed and their Fed policy and how that impacts rates. And that's a whole nother thing, but that's a big thing that's going on right now.
Okay, so let's stay real generic here. A $300,000 home, and I'm just make the medium income that John Q. buyer makes, and I'm interested in the home, and I have decent credit. I have a decent down payment. Mm-hmm. How big of a deal is it if the rate is 6.1% versus 6.8%?
It becomes more expensive.
Okay.
Number one, and
Sure.
that also affects your affordability, so what you can purchase. A lot of people, when they're qualifying for a loan, you're buying a home, to be honest, they buy at the top of what they qualify for. And it's not always the case, but in general, that
Sure.
is what you're limited to, but that will go down as rates start to go up.
Okay, so a 6.1 to 6.8 on a $300,000 home, is that now 270,000 is my peak? Does that 0.7 percentage change it from like 30,000, 50,000? How much does that affect how much I can buy?
Probably is going to change it in the tens of thousands.
Okay.
So if we were talking about, a house that you were buying in 2020 versus the house you're buying now, if they were the same price and the rates were the difference, you're talking, depending on the scenario, just being very generic, $1,000, $1,500 more per month just because of that rate increase, which will make a huge different impact on what you can qualify for.
But there's some great programs, aren't there, Michael, to keep people's. We've talked about that a lot the last couple of weeks, Dave.
Maybe military. So, yeah, what are things that you can offer that can ease the pain of the wallet purchasing the home?
Definitely. With VA loans, they have zero down payment. USDA loans, which are rural development, and it is very specific on where the property is, but those also are zero down. There are also down payment assistance programs, which can help buyers cover their down payment and even some of their closing costs in some cases.
Okay.
So there's a few different programs for that. There is a first-time home buyer program, which is a conventional program which allows you to put just 3% down. So there's lots of different programs available for buyers. Each comes with its own pros and cons. Each has different requirements. But I will say that there's probably something for almost everybody. So if anyone is out there that is a little discouraged because rates are high, I would say definitely give it a shot, see where you're at. Even if it's not the right time for you to buy, you can come up with a plan to get to that point versus not knowing.
So I am a first-time home buyer, and now I'm ready to start the purchase process. What's the easiest way to get into that, and what does that entail?
Well, you got to do the fun part, which is contacting the lender.
Okay.
You can always contact me anytime. My phone number is 310-929-8110. You can call or text me. I also have an online application at www.okchomeloans.com.
Say that again, because I know someone probably just heard it go right on by.
Sure.
Say it again.
That's www.okchomeloans.com. What I always tell my borrowers is before we get too in-depth in programs and what options are out there, do an application first. Fill it out. Let us see the full picture. Run your scenarios and go over the options that you do qualify for. Because we could spend all day long talking about 40 different programs and they could all sound great.
Sure.
But you might only qualify for 2 of those. So to save you time and confusion, I always say let's do an application, see where you're at, see what you qualify for, see if those programs meet your needs and are what you're looking for. If they are, fantastic, we run from there. If they're not, then we put you on a plan to qualify for a program that works for your scenario. That way you can get to the fun part and go call Wally and go find a house.
Let me ask you something real quick, Dave. What about those who know their credit isn't just right? Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of deals like Discover Card today just tell you what your credit score is. So if someone knows they're a little bit credit challenged, can you help them out?
We can, to an extent. We're not credit experts, but what I will say is mortgage lenders use a different version of your FICO score than you'll find on like a credit card website or Credit Karma or something like that. They all use newer versions of FICO tailored just for generic purposes. Mortgage lenders use FICO 2, 4, and 5, and it's based on the each bureau. And those are tailored to mortgage lenders and mortgage specific. So you will have a different mortgage credit score than you see on Credit Karma. It could be higher, it could be lower. It depends on your unique credit situation. But so I always say, someone thinks they have a 640. Give it a shot. Let's see where you're at. If you think you have a 580, give it a shot. You might come out at 640 or 700. I've seen it happen. That's where it gets a little tricky. And there are websites that you can go to view your mortgage credit score if you were curious about that as well.
Now, in the application process, if I have the cash, my credit score, like I said, might be just a little iffy, but I have the cash maybe to buy down points, which now brings the rate down just a little bit. And now that's going to say, hey, now I can afford that home because now it falls within those parameters. Is that something that helps? And is that something that you deal with?
Yes. And when we talk about buying down points, it's very situational. It's case by case, if it makes sense for your specific scenario.
Okay.
Because you're essentially prepaying interest to buy it down. It's going to be cheaper than the whole 30-year loan.
Yes.
But you're assuming that you're going to keep that loan for a long period of time. So what we do is we figure out what that price is going to be, what it's going to cost, what rate you can get, and that changes daily, sometimes even during the day. And we'll find out how much money you're going to save if you go from, let's say, 6.25 down to 5.75, and then how much that's going to cost. Then what we'll do is we'll take that cost, divide it by how much you're saving, and it'll give us a monthly figure. That's your break-even point. So if that break-even point comes out to be 60 months, and you think you might refinance or sell in 3 years, it doesn't make sense. If you think you're going to keep it for 10 years, then absolutely.
Sure.
I will say we're in kind of a unique rate environment where we know rates are a little bit higher than they probably should be just because of inflation. We know that when inflation comes down, rates are more than likely going to come down at some point back to a level that they should be. They may not be 2 or 3%, but it may be 4, maybe 4.5, 5, who knows? And if you're buying right now and you're at 6.5, and that happens in a year and a half, you might want to refinance. It might make sense to do so. So I always put that in the back of buyers' minds. If you're going to pay $2,000 or $3,000 or however much it's going to cost to buy down that rate. You just need to make sure that it works with your plan and your goals and what you're planning on doing.
Each scenario is different, isn't it?
Every
it's just
scenario.
tailored to your advice, and your expertise is really tailored to each different buyer and what their situation is, what their plan is, right?
Yep. Every borrower is different.
Michael Connor with Great Plains Mortgage is joining us this morning on House Talk with Wally Kerr. I'll ask you one last question here. Before I come approach you, what do I need to have in order?
Well, definitely take a look at your credit just so you have an idea of where you are. Make sure you're employed. And think about what you're comfortable spending per month and what you're comfortable coming out of pocket with. Because those are all going to be the important factors that are going to determine what program we recommend to you and what you might qualify for.
Okay. Because I don't want to come in your office and you're like, hey, what's your credit score? Oh, I don't know. I'm just ready to buy a farm. Let's get to it. And you're like, well, we got a lot of questions.
To be honest,
right.
that's okay too. If you want to just call me up and say, look, I have not thought about this and I just want to see what I can do, we can do that too.
Michael Connor from Great Plains Mortgage. Once again, thanks for joining us this morning on House Talk with Wally Kerr.
Thank you guys for having me.
Now, Wally, I do have all the financing available. The options are all taken care of. Now I have found the home I want. But you know what? When I went to go check it out during the open house, I noticed other people there, and they were very interested in the home as well. What do I need to do to ensure that that's going to be my home and I'm going to win it?
There's going to be disappointment on your part and your wife's part. I can deal with you. I just can't deal with your wife if we lose the dream home.
That's true.
Dave?
Yes.
So there are ways to assure that once you find that dream home, and we've talked today, there's a pretty skinny inventory available.
Yes.
Of existing homes. In fact, it's really low. Looks like it may not increase as fast as demand increases. So when you do find that home, there are things you can do as a home buyer to make sure the seller wants to work with you.
Okay.
That's kind of it. You want the seller to look at you in a favorable light.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the most important, and it really doesn't have as much to do with me. This is your responsibility.
Okay.
You don't want to be pre-qualified. You want to be pre-approved. And Michael didn't talk about that necessarily, but there's a real difference. Pre-qualified means I found this home on the weekend. I went out and went to this open house, and I fell in love with this home, and I didn't know I was going to love it, but it's the area I want. So I called the lender and just kind of told him about how much I made and what I thought my debts were, and they gave me this pre-qualification letter. It doesn't hold the same weight as a pre-approval letter does. Pre-approval means everything's been verified.
Sure.
That's what the seller wants today. So you're going to need a pre-approval letter, and that's going to take more than an hour to get.
Okay.
Okay? Because they're going to have to really check credit. They're going to have to find out what your income and debts are, and they're going to have to verify that. There are some lenders that can get that done in a couple of hours, but you're going to need that pre-approval letter as opposed to pre-qualify. Some other things you could do. You sold your home years ago. You really, as a seller, you don't like contingencies. Buyers get a lot of contingencies. It's contingent upon financing. It's contingent upon inspections. It's contingent upon the appraisal. So any contingencies that you can remove. Now, here's a common one that a lot of people have. They own a home now, and they want to buy another home, so they'll write a contingent offer that says, I'll buy this house. I saw it open house today, but I need to sell my home first. That's where I can help out, that Wally
Sure.
can help out with the guaranteed sale program. For a lot of people, I can guarantee to sell someone's home in an agreed period or just buy it myself so they can buy that dream home they found. And so that's where the guaranteed sale program has helped a lot of my customers over the years get the home they want.
Because I have heard of the contingency on that, and people have that saying, okay, they have 30 days and the clock is ticking and they have to sell it. And they've gotten down to within a week, and it got scary for some people I knew. And they sold it within a couple of days going, great news, the house is sold. We can buy our other home now that we agreed to buy, but it was through the contingency of this or that. I would be pulling my hair out.
If your home were on the market today and you got 4 offers on it and 3 of them didn't require somebody to sell their home first and 1 did, you're probably not going to give any consideration to that 4th offer unless it's really good. Now, if it's $20,000 more, you might be willing to wait for somebody to sell their home.
Yes.
But getting rid of the contingencies is really important. Sometimes what home buyers will do and what a buyer might consider is write an offer that says, we're going to inspect your home, but we're not going to ask for piddly little repairs. We're not going to ask for the small stuff. We just want to make sure the furnace, the air conditioner, the water heater, the appliances, electrical and plumbing, we want those all to be in proper working order, but we're not going to nitpick you on repairs. That wins. For people who want every single little thing fixed, try to put yourself in the seller's shoes. Do you want to be nitpicked, or do you want people just to take care of the major things, and then you can take care of the smaller things after closing?
Yes.
You can take and add some flexibility to the seller's closing date. Often I'll call the listing agent if I'm working with a buyer and say, tell me what your seller wants. When would be a good date that they'd be okay with closing? And if I write an offer that is along the lines with what the seller's expectations are, I've got a better chance of that seller looking at my buyer's offer in a more favorable light. Let's say my buyer needs some closing costs paid. Maybe I talk to my buyer about, hey, this home looks like it's priced pretty good inside the neighborhood. There are comparable sales, and it looks like it might appraise for a little bit more. Instead of asking the seller to pay the closing costs, it's listed for $315,000. If you need closing costs paid of $5,000, why don't we go offer the seller $320,000, which really nets the seller their same $315,000, and it really doesn't cost that much more when you finance those closing costs in.
Helping everybody win.
Helping everybody win.
Helping everybody win.
The seller's biggest fear, am I going to take my home off the market, and is the sale going to fall through? And is it going to look like there was something wrong with my home where I'm going to have to go put it back on the market and explain why? And so from the seller's perspective, if you're trying to buy this home that you just told me, Wally, we found this home, I want this, this is my home, how do I win it? Try to imagine what the seller's thinking on their end. Will I have time to move? Are they going to nitpick me on repairs? If you can shorten up the inspection period, because Dave, during that inspection period, you can cancel the contract if you see something you don't like. So shorten the inspection period from the standard 10 days. Sometimes agents will ask for 15 days for their buyers to do inspections. That's probably not looked at very favorably by the seller. The seller's going to say, let's get those inspections done so we know we have a deal. And then maybe even do something like hire a house cleaner for the seller. I've even had buyers go in and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, why don't you just move out and don't worry about cleaning the home. We'll take care of that ourselves because we know you're going to be exhausted. And Dave, you are now in the seller's corner, and they like that. And that also can help you win the offer that you want the seller to accept.
And you know what? There's creative ways to make everyone win where I may have thought about it was only just financially, but there's a lot of things like you talked about, dates and things that the seller's going to have to do to get out of the house that don't even involve the price of the house that I never would have thought of, that you can get creative to kind of help them out. Now that everyone's on the same page, everyone wins, everyone's happy, we're working together. Again, I can't get beyond the word win. Everybody wins, and it makes the whole process a joy for everyone.
You just said something really important. Get on the same page. Get the contingencies taken care of. Shorten the inspection period. Give them some flexibility to moving out of the property. Understand that they're uprooting their life to move. I think this is just all about giving our buyers the best possible advice using just what I'd say are proven negotiation strategies. So if you've got questions about a specific, maybe a transaction you're in now, maybe you're thinking about buying and this brought up a thought in your head, just text me and I'll answer questions, and you don't have to talk to me. I want to be a good resource. You can also go, if you've got any questions about the Guaranteed Sale program that I mentioned, go to wallyhasthebuyers.com. Up on the top right-hand corner, there's a tab that says Selling. And if you will just click up there at the top right on Selling, you'll find all the information you need about our Guaranteed Sale program, which can help you ultimately win the home you want without having to have a contingency to sell your current home.
You're listening to House Talk with Wally Kerr. It airs every Saturday morning, 7 a.m. here on KOKC. Wally Kerr from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty Kerr team. Again, the website, wallyhasthebuyers.com. You can go get the info that you need there. You can also text Wally at 405-330-3000. Also, you can hear replays of this show. If you got in on the latter part of it, you can go to Wally's YouTube channel. You can listen to the podcast at all different podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, many others. Wally, they just have to search Kerr Team. Is that correct? Or what do they want to search on those?
Search Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, Kerr Team, and you should find links on those. And we are posting links to each of our shows at wallyhasthebuyers.com.
This has been House Talk with Wally Kerr on KOKC.